You got four. You got fourth in the Millionaire Maker, massive result, but still fourth. You got second now
Yeah.
in this one, so it keeps you hungry. If you got the outright win, Yita, you would just go and sip cocktails on the beach, and we won't see you again. So you got something still to aim for, not the money, but
Yeah.
the title.
Yeah, definitely. I think honestly, like titles haven't really motivated me that much, but like, yeah, the drive to win that heads up was quite high at the time.
Well, look, yeah, I mean, you've been on an incredible run this year. I mean, you've just had like result after result after result, and some of them have been massive, and some of them in kind of like smaller tournaments, but still massive results. You're a
Sure.
super hot guy right now, and I'm not just talking about your looks. You
Thanks,
have definitely had a lot of success on the front stage, and we've all been watching and cheering you on. So it's really cool to have you here.
man. Great. Happy to be here, and yeah, it's just been an incredible year for me. Just yeah, results wise, like yeah, never sort of imagined anything like it. So yeah, very happy with how the year's going so far.
Yeah, man. So tell me how it feels to have all these results just kind of like come one after the other.
It's weird, man. Like, because I like towards the end of last year, like I was going through quite a big downswing, and obviously like kind of sounds funny to say that now, but yeah, it's like the initial sort of few sort of things, I guess, sort of helped me recover, and then after that, everything has just been sort of extra after that. So it's been unreal just to get out of that huge downswing at first, and then just sort of start actually winning. So yeah, it's been an incredible experience, and also just like the amount of support from the community has also been incredible. Like when I was running deep in the Million Maker, for example, I didn't even realize people were watching and stuff because I was just playing my game. I didn't really tell anyone apart from my friends who were there, and so all the Aussies who were in Vegas knew, but I didn't really tell my family, my friends until sort of quite late into the tournament. And then suddenly my phone starts blowing up when there's two tables left, and I'm like, what's going on? And then suddenly, yeah, I realized that everyone's sort of been following and stuff. So it's been pretty crazy, like, and yeah, just completely unexpected the amount of support that I've got. So yeah, really appreciate all that from the community.
Well, look, I mean, the fact that you're jumping on here with us to share some of the insights and the experiences and some of your wisdom you've gained is a perfect way to give back to all the support that you're so grateful for. So that's
No
awesome,
worries.
man. And we all appreciate you jumping on here. Yeah, and I want to dig a bit deeper into like what it's like to run deep in such a huge tournament like the Millionaire Maker, and then have the weight of almost Australia's poker community there behind you. And I'm sure I'd love
Sure.
to get Adrian on here as well and pick his brain about what that's
Yeah.
like in such a big stage, because like your tournament was like a side event, but it was a massive side event. Like first
Yeah.
prize was what, like 1.3 million US. That's like the Aussie millions.
Yeah. I think it was 1.1, but still, like, it was supposed to be like $1 million guarantee for first, and then obviously ended up breaking that. 8,000 players, just massive field to get through. So yeah, like I keep telling people who come up to me and say congrats. Like I should have busted day three. Like I had like a very key hand on day three where I was like 20% to win, and I should have just lost all in pre-flop, and then somehow managed to chop it, and then yeah, make it so deep. I guess like as you're actually playing and running deep, you don't really realize it because you're just kind of playing each hand by hand. Tables are breaking and you're just moving tables, just playing the next hand, trying to figure out your opponents. You don't really realize it, and then suddenly at the end of the day, you're like, hang on a sec, there's only 20 people left in this tournament, and like it just sort of hits you at the end of the day that, oh man, it's actually quite a deep run. So yeah, I kind of just took it hand by hand, and then yeah, just just took it as it came, I guess, and then suddenly I'm on day five. So yeah, crazy run.
So you sort of just like were engaged in the process, like any other tournament for you, and you sort of enter a tournament like the Millionaire Maker, and you kind of know you're not going to final table, right? But you aim for it
Exactly.
anyway, and you focus on the process, is what I'm hearing. And then all
Yeah,
of a sudden you
definitely.
find yourself in the final 20, and it's like it snaps you into, you're like, hang on a minute, I actually have a shot at winning this thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, yeah, and like you said, it's all about the process, especially with tournaments where one chip doesn't equal $1.
Mm,
It's very important to just like continue focusing on the process, because like sometimes you'll play your best, and you won't get the best outcome. And sometimes you won't play your best, and you'll get like an unexpectedly good outcome. So it's very random. But like if you have good process and you have good sort of I guess a good I guess mental approach to the game, then I feel like the results eventually come, hopefully in the long run. But obviously, there's a lot of sort of people who don't realize their EV quite as quickly. But
Mm.
yeah, I mean, all you can do is sort of focus on process, I think.
Man, you've touched on a lot of things there that we need to really dig deeper into, because a lot of people
Yeah,
listening,
sure,
like, they think, oh, the process. Well, what does that mean? One chip equals $1. What does that mean? Like,
sure.
volume. You hope that over time, how much volume do I need? Like, these are the types of questions that people think, and people who don't get the
Yeah,
chance to play full time, like you might be, they're racking their brain wondering why they're not getting results. So I reckon maybe start with like this idea of the process. What does that
sure.
mean for you?
It kind of means quite a few things actually. I guess uh, on the felt, it would be referring to like being sort of theoretically sound, and then sort of making the right adjustments to your opponents based on what you've sort of learned from their play, whether it's like in this session or in previous sessions. And then yeah, making the correct adjustments and making the correct exploits. So then, and then also just being sort of quite mentally stable during the tournament, because obviously you're going to cop bad beats. You're going to cop bad runouts, for example, in individual hands, and you just have to just soldier on. I guess there's nothing much you can do other than continue playing until you bust out in the tournament, and then sort of reflect on it later. So that'll be my process, sort of on the felt, and then I guess off the felt, it's more about sort of improving your game. Working on studying, pre-flop, post-flop. Making notes on your opponents before the final table, for example. Just all these sort of little things that sort of help you improve your performance in the game. Um, so yeah, like yeah, when I think about process, it's like a lot of different little things, but they all add up. Like they all. I mean, as you know, poker's all about sort of tiny little edges, and the the more small edges you accumulate, whether it's on the felt or off the felt, I guess the easier it is to achieve the results that you want to achieve.
Yeah, man. And look, I love that approach where obviously variance is going to hit anyone, and poker is about finding those little edges, whether they be from mental strength and stamina or through like theoretical stuff. Like, if you were to put a percentage on it, people often ask me how much of the percentage of it is like theory based or mental and performance based. Like, what would your like response to that sort of statement be?
Um, yeah, it's kind of tough to put a number to it straight away. Um, I'm just thinking like based on my, because I used to be a very sort of theoretical player, and
Mm,
I wouldn't pay much attention to all the mental stuff, and then the sort of making those adjustments, and I think that hampered my results quite a bit when I first
mm,
started playing, because I would try and stick too close to what I thought was correct, or what some solver told me was correct, and yeah, that just wasn't the case, especially in live poker, where a lot of the population doesn't play like a computer. So
mm.
um, yeah, maybe something like 50-50 is probably correct. Sort of, you have a good, you sort of start with a good baseline based on what you know what the theory dictates and all that, and then sort of the other 50% is sort of adjusting to the population, adjusting to the individual players, and
Mm,
making sure that your strategy is sort of not too robotic, I guess. So
mm,
yeah,
mm.
yeah,
Yeah, because I feel like, I mean, you sort of, there's this understanding that you've got your GTO, which is the game theory optimal stuff, and then there's the exploitative side of the game. And exploitative is where you can yield a higher profit because you're able to exploit people's mistakes. But if you play the GTO sort of sound foundational strategy, then you can be unexploited yourself and at least yield some sort of profit, providing you're not
sure,
making mistakes or have flaws in your understanding of it. So
Sure.
I suppose like the exploitative side is where I think the mental stuff comes in, because you have to be really clear and really focus mentally to be able to observe those differences rather than rely on muscle memory and all the things you've studied to just put that into play. um,
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious as to know a little bit more about, like, you say, oh, I want to make sure I've got the theory down pat or whatever.
Yeah.
What did you do? I mean, like, I know that you're a chess player, and I'd love to know a bit more about that. But like,
Sure.
you came into the game. It looks like your first recorded result was in 2019, which wasn't that long ago, given that we had a pandemic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
did you come in and just like straight away just jump on a particular solver? If so, what was it? Did you have friends that were doing it? Like, what was that journey like?
Um, yeah, so it's interesting when I first sort of went full time, I guess, which is like March 2020. Um, I was mainly a cash player and like a live
Hmm.
cash player, so I wasn't really using much. I mean, I probably sort of dabbled in a few with a few solvers, but not really using it too seriously. And then the pandemic hit, and I was sort of forced to start playing online. And then obviously the skill gap between live and online is quite high.
Mm.
Um, so I was sort of I was sort of forced to start studying a bit more and learning. So I think when I first started, I was sort of using um, mainly those training courses to sort of start learning the correct concepts and all that. But then as I sort of went through a few of the courses, I realized how sort of solver intensive they were, and
Mm.
how much solver output was actually in those courses. Um, and I decided, okay, well, at some point I'm going to have to start, you know, using those myself. But it's quite hard initially to just jump straight in, because a lot of the time, if you just like an amateur player, let's say, and you jump in, and you look at the Pyro output, it's very confusing sometimes. And if you put the wrong inputs in, for example, you're going to get some garbage output, and it's not going to make sense. And you're going to look at it, and you're going to sort of learn the wrong lessons, and maybe misapply some concepts. So it's quite difficult to just jump straight in, and it's important to know some concepts first before you start getting into the nitty gritty of you know what to do with this hand, this combo, and this spot, because that can be very confusing.
Could you just explain just a little like deeper onto what you mean there? So when you say input, you're using, so firstly the software is like Pio Solver. Is that
Sure.
right? Or is it a different one, or
Yeah, that would be the main one that I would use if I was
the
to
main one that you're
run my own
using? Okay.
sims. Yeah.
Okay, so when you say
Yeah.
run your own sims, so I just want to get a bit more clear for people who'd really, because people really don't know. People say they know what GTO is, but they don't
Sure.
know where to start. They want to study, they don't know which course, whether they go to Upswing, GTO Wizard, PioSolver. People get really, really overwhelmed and confused to the point where they do nothing. So what do
Yeah.
you mean, like inputting sims, like all that?
So if you were to use Pyre, you would have to input your own parameters for the sizings that the bot is allowed to use on different streets.
Hmm.
So you can put as many sizings as you want, but it's limited by your computing power. For example, if you put like 10 sizings on the flop, your computer will probably explode, because it's not going to have enough RAM to run the sim. Um, but yeah, so I think Pyre is probably it's probably not the best place to start, because it requires so much manual input and sort of I guess initial understanding of certain spots before you can actually produce a meaningful result from the sim.
Hmm.
Um, I would say a good place to start for players wanting to get into that kind of space is to get like a is to, yeah, either look at one of those courses where they explain the concepts to you from the start, so you can actually build your strategy from the base up and sort of have a good understanding, rather than, because like it's important to like not memorize outputs, but actually understand concepts, because then you can apply them in other spots, you know.
Mm.
So either like watch a course, or have someone who's like slightly better than you explain to you a concept, um, and that's yeah. So between those two, like those were the initial ways that I found were very, very useful to my learning.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that there's a really like a next level intense like mathematical and theoretical process that we have to go through. It's not as simple as looking at the face value of the game. Like, I have ace king on the button and someone raised, what do I do? Like, the types of
Sure.
questions I get, Yita, are like, oh, Brendan, I got a hand for you. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So the first thing will be like, oh, I had 30, maybe 40 big blinds. I don't know, whatever it was. I raised. It's like straight away. No, I need to know exactly what you had, right? We need
Yeah.
specifics here. Like, so you're going through like a live scenario or maybe online where you had a hand and you want to further your knowledge. So you take that hand to Pio Silver, you put it in there, you then put in like different types of bet sizing things to suggest what you could do, and then it runs a simulator and gives you suggestions on your EV. Is that right?
Yeah, more or
Rough
less.
and ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm just trying to, like, I haven't really talked too deeply about those types of things on my podcast before. And I just do get a lot of
Sure.
people sort of asking, and they want to just know that little bit more about what it is and how to go down it if they want to go down it. But I don't want to talk
Yeah.
too much more about theory because I'm more
Sure.
about the mindset stuff. So
Sure. Sure.
switching over to the mindset stuff, I was commentating
Yeah.
your final table for last week when you were in the Sydney Champs, and you got second. First of all, congratulations. I mean, I'm sure it's bittersweet.
Thanks. Ah,
Being
happy
one
with the
card away
result
from the
either
win.
way.
Yeah,
Nah,
yeah,
it's all
yeah.
good. Yeah, very similar to the Vegas run where I came into that FT like not being anywhere close to being able to win. So yeah, just happy with the result, I guess.
Just you go into the, and it's just a game where you
Yeah.
realize your position, and you're realistic about your expectations of what you can achieve with your chip stack and all that, and do the best you
Yeah.
can, and whatever happens
Exactly.
happens.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
Yita, there's something like next level that you're not factoring in, which is that you're a human and humans experience emotion. You must have been frustrated when you were one card away from that title and an extra 100 and something thousand. Like, how have you been feeling
Yeah.
lately
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. I generally find that any frustration or anger or negative emotions that I have following a bust out or whatever it is, they generally go away like within the next day. If I have a good sleep, they sort of just go away. And even when I was playing chess when I was younger, like it was the same thing. Like I would have like a really really horrible game where I could play for ages and then lose, and I would just be really sort of, I guess, tilted even, and I would just sleep it off the next day. So yeah, like obviously, yeah, in on that night when I was, having drinks with my friends afterwards, I was like, man, just one card away. But like, it all just sort of goes away. The next day you wake up and you're like, oh, actually, I turned like a seventh place when I came into the FT into a second. So yeah, it all worked out.
Oh yeah, I mean, like there are thousands of ways you could put a positive spin on it. Like, okay, I entered the tournament, and my chance of even final
Yeah,
tabling is slim to none. So I'm
yeah,
happy.
exactly.
Like, you can look at it so many different ways, but there's still
Yeah,
such I mean, our brains are sort of hardwired to remember negative things and to remember painful experiences, to prevent us from going through it again. And poker is a very, very dangerous game for that, because
yeah,
you're constantly put in scenarios where you basically lose, especially tournament poker. Like, even
yes,
if you're the
yeah,
best player in the world, you're still going to bust out of probably 4 out of 5 tournaments, roughly, right?
yeah, yeah,
So you have
yeah,
to keep your head strong. So yeah,
yeah.
so I'm sort of curious then. I mean, you play chess. Let's link this in here, because chess to me doesn't seem like there's anywhere near as much luck as poker. So how does that factor in, and your experience in chess come into poker?
um, yeah, you're right, and but I think other than the fact that there's not as much luck, I guess with cards or anything, it is still like a turn-based game, and you still have opponents who have certain tendencies, and you can look to sort of, yeah, steer the game into positions where they are uncomfortable, for example, or into positions where you're more comfortable because of your tendencies. So there is a bit of that as well. I guess the overlap comes from the fact that you in both games you kind of start from an equal position. Both players have the same number of pieces, same number of chips at the start of the tournament, and then you just sort of play until you one person gets the upper hand. It just happens that there's a bit more variance in poker, I guess. But I guess like from chess, like growing up and playing chess, I think I started when I was like 5 years old or something, and I kept playing until sort of early 20s, and then sort of started playing a bit less when got a bit more busy with life and all that. I guess yeah, like there were a lot of important life lessons learned from chess, like in terms of just getting beat down and sort of having to wake up the next day and play again, kind of thing. Just yeah, being able to take losses from an early age, I guess. That sort of really helped with resilience and sort of being able to I don't know, cop bad beats these days. Like it doesn't affect me quite as much as as it would have, I guess, if I hadn't played chess. So yeah, I think that's probably the most key factor, like just the resilience, and then the discipline, and then like the whole strategic aspect of the game.
Mm. Yeah, so it's like I played chess when I was a kid until about like year 6, and then I went to high school and they didn't have chess there, and then I got into music. So like, but I actually
Sure.
was like second in my school. I could never beat this one guy, Trevor.
Oh, cool.
I have traumatic memories of trying to beat him, and I never could. But I was pretty happy with my progression in chess and the whole strategy behind it. And I've always been creative. I've always been into things like soccer, music, and things like that. So I get it, and I understand the whole process of learning basically how to lose. Like
Yeah.
yeah, winning's great, and that's what you aim towards. But you have to get really, really good at losing, and being a bit of a loser.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. I'm kind of curious. Like, so for me, I've done a lot of psychoanalyzing of myself over the years. Like, I'm one of 5 boys. So I grew up in a very competitive family when it comes to just, the last chicken nugget on the dinner table, to soccer games, to games in the pool, like all sorts of things, video games. For you, do you have any siblings? Was your culture heavily predicated around you achieving a high standard in any sense?
I have a younger sister. She's 3 years younger. I think I had not sort of in terms of like between the two of us competition, but there was a lot of, I guess, pressure from my parents to perform as a kid, and that was probably a very good influence on my life, actually, because it helped me sort of become more competitive and more always to strive for the best, kind of thing. So yeah, I think that worked out pretty well.
So your parents were more of the ones that influenced you to want to be your best in whatever it was you were doing.
Yeah, like they would always introduce me to like new hobbies or new sports or whatever it is, and just encourage me to sort of try, strive for the best whatever I was doing. I think they were pretty open as to like what if I was just I think they just wanted me to find something I was passionate about, and something that I was sort of be able to drive myself and strive for the best. And I think I found that in chess from a very early age. So I was quite fortunate in that sense. And yeah, like I said, that sort of pervaded into other aspects of my life. Like my studies or whatever it was going forward. Just to always strive for the best and always push myself, I guess.
I'm sort of surprised that with that sort of upbringing, you are able to shake off the losses and the disappointing things after just one night's sleep.
um, yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Um, I guess it just comes from chess, really, because yeah, like you said, you have to learn how to lose, and lose with grace, and lose and sort of learn the mistakes that you've made, and with chess in particular, it's a very sort of like it's not a team game. There's no luck involved. There's literally nothing you can really blame other than yourself.
Mm.
You can't blame the cards, you can't blame the dealer, or whatever you choose to blame. Um, and like it sort of teaches you to be very sort of, or to just take responsibility, and to
Mm.
to learn all that stuff. So I guess yeah, like I guess yeah, that would be my answer. Like even though in this environment where like I'm sort of being pushed to perform, I guess I think yeah, like it's just important to you know cop the L sometimes, and then just see what you can learn from it and just push forward.
Yeah, I love that, man. Because like I was just thinking of like how many other sports or games would have a luck to skill factor that would be as low as something like chess, right? Like, because it seems that there's not a whole lot of luck at all in chess. Like,
Yeah. I mean, luck in terms of like, uh, there is some luck with luck, but it's mainly sort of, I guess, external factors. So, like, if you turn up, for example, and your opponent's sick, then you probably have an advantage that you wouldn't have had normally.
oh
Or
yeah,
like,
okay,
the way that chess tournaments, like they said, they have a draw, like a Swiss pairing system, and then
uh-huh.
sometimes like the pairing system can give you a good pairing, even though you're on a let's say a high score or whatever. Hard to explain, I guess. But like, yeah,
It sounds like table draw. Like
yeah,
table
table draw.
draw, and like
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you get break your table breaks, you go to a tough table or a soft table in the back end of a big tournament, things like that. Is that what you mean?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
you've
yeah,
explained it
yeah,
perfectly. So yeah, something like
yeah.
that. So like,
So
there is external luck, but not really on the board.
right. Okay,
Yeah,
but I love that you really had so much experience, especially at a young age, where there's an advantage for you to absorb that as a habit to learn to deal with losing and learn to focus on more about how you're going to progress from that. Because man, so many people, and you would know this, so many people easily blame bad luck on their results in poker. But the hardest
yeah,
thing that I find is that people don't know when to blame bad luck or not. And my response to that is you
yeah,
should never blame bad luck, right? So if
yeah,
you ever have like a bad experience, like if you ever bust out or if you ever lose a hand, you should always be looking from it as from a theoretical point of view, not from a bad luck. Yeah, you can shrug it off and say, oh, that was unlucky. And sure, you have heaps of hands that are unlucky, but you also have heaps of hands that are lucky too. But no one ever goes, oh, I'm so lucky, yay. Like people are more
yeah,
likely to complain about the bad luck. So if you're looking to actually develop and actually, improve yourself in the game, I think that you have to eliminate any blame at all on luck, right? Like
yeah.
what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I tend to agree. Like, yeah, like everyone obviously, like, as you know, everyone loves to remember the spots where they're unlucky, but they kind of forget the ones where they sucked out, and they forget the ones where they ran good, and in certain spots. I think you're right. Especially like when I first started playing, I was playing sort of mainly online with the pandemic and all that. And like if you track your results, you get a pretty good idea of whether you're running good or bad, right? And I would say like most players sort of run, you know, 2 EV over a decent sample of hands. So you can a lot of people will say that yes, they're unlucky, and it may be true in certain spots, but there's also other spots where they weren't so unlucky. So
Mm,
I think, yeah, I think you said, it's very important to just focus on what the stuff that you can control, rather than um you know trying to blame it on luck or anything.
mm. And that sort of brings me back to the idea of the mental game, the peak performance side of things, which I'm so passionate about and have worked towards over the years. I think you reach a point where you've learned enough about the game. Obviously, you're constantly learning, right? And you're constantly trying
Yeah,
to upskill yourself in the game. But you do reach a certain
yeah,
point where you've got pretty sound foundational, set of skills in the game that most of your success is predicated on how you prepare yourself in that particular tournament or for that tournament series or whatever. Um,
sure.
you, Coming back to your final table, a few people were commenting in the chat box, and I was making a few comments as a commentator, that you got the nickname the Dalai Lita or the Dalai Yita, like with reference to the Dalai Lama because of how composed and relaxed and just just still you were at the table. Is that organic for you, or is that conscious for you that you have to apply that thing?
um, yeah, so it's weird. Like I was actually talking to a friend about this the other day, and he was asking me the same question. I was like, look, I kind of just sit there, and I don't want to shuffle chips when I'm playing, because it sort of distracts me from like direct soaking in the hands and all that stuff, and like looking at the other hands. I literally sit there with my hands in my lap, because I don't want to shuffle chips, and I want to sort of distract myself. So I guess that was a conscious choice. And then other than that, like, yeah, I have made like a conscious effort to like just pay attention, um, during, even if I'm not in the hands, because like I used to just sit there on my phone and text my friends or whatever, or check Instagram when I was between hands. But like you lose so much information because especially in live poker, like you play so few hands an hour, so you really need to just soak in everything that you can if you want to sort of gain the biggest edge, I guess. So I guess yeah, that was a sort of a conscious choice that I've made, I guess, in the last few months, just to try and focus myself and and yeah, improve my results, I guess. So yeah, like it all adds up, like we talked about before.
Mm. So part of you like is more that you want to eliminate distractions so that you can really just like zoom in on the game, focus on the hand in progress, or if you're not in it, you want to be able to absorb any information. So if you're not using your hands to play with chips or your phone, then there's less going on, basically.
Yeah,
Um,
essentially. Yeah.
so you said you used to play on your phone a lot and you don't so much now. Like what? At which point did that change, and like how did you change that habit?
Um. So it was probably around the same time. So I remember I think I told you before, I used to be a very theoretical player, and it was around the time when I realized that I should probably try and not be so robotic. That I probably made a decision to start paying more attention, because um, when you realize like what you can do when you have a good baseline, start with a good baseline, but also are very aware of what your opponents are doing. Um, yeah, it just sort of clicked for me that I had to just pay more attention and
Mm.
be more sort of present at the table. So yeah, around that same time, I would say probably, yeah, it was not that recent. Sorry, not that not in the not that distant past, to be honest.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
It sounds like it could have been maybe around the time. I mean, you mentioned you had a pretty bad downswing, last year or something. And often when we go through downswings is when we make the biggest changes because you sort of have to. The pressure's on you, right? You have to start looking at other ways because it's almost like, well, what you're doing is probably not working, so you gotta improve on things.
yeah,
Yeah, no, that's
absolutely,
it's really interesting, man. Like, because your
yeah,
presence is very different to that of others, and your timing when I mean, I've obviously played a lot with you now. Well, when I
yeah,
say a lot, really not that much, but a lot enough to know that you've got a certain
sure,
presence about you.
sure.
It's sort of fearful for other people because when you're taking your time in each hand and you've got such a still presence, we're always thinking, well, what the hell is going on in his head? So
Well,
it's
mostly just sitting there counting the pot, to be honest.
counting the pot. Yeah, yeah. So just lots of numbers
uh,
going on in there.
Yeah, honestly, like I sit there and I'm trying to add up like the pre-flop amount and like what the pre-flop raise was and then what the flop bet was, because I generally have like a decent idea of what I want to bet, but I know what I want to bet in proportion to the pot. So
Hmm.
honestly, like half the time when I sit there and think, it's literally me counting the pot. So not too much like deep stuff going on in there. Don't worry.
Well, that's probably relieving for people to know because we feel like you're some sort of superhuman, but now it's good to know that you're just doing a process and you're trying to just have as much clarity and focus as you can.
Yeah, secrets
Yeah.
out.
So tell me, man. So coming back to the Millionaire Maker, I mean, my guess is that's your biggest position in
Yeah,
poker you've ever found yourself in. Um,
sure.
what was that like on the final table? You mentioned a bit about leading into the final table and whatnot, but when you got to that final table, like, what was it like? The experience. Tell us.
Oh, it was crazy. Like when I first made the FT, I was like, I was looking my rail like, this is real life. Like this is no way. Like yeah, it was just surreal. And then so we didn't actually get to play on the feature table until the final five. But we
Hmm.
were on one of the secondary ones, and there was just cameras everywhere, and like there was reporters and stuff. It was crazy. Like, um, and then on the final day, I got to meet like Jeff Platt and Brent Hanks. We were like, I've seen these guys commentating on TV for like years and stuff, and it was just incredible. So yeah, like the whole experience was great. Like I said, like poker wise, I was just taking it hand by hand. But then, yeah, when you look around you and see all the stuff, it's like, man, this is crazy, and yeah, like it was my first World Series. I hadn't been pre-pandemic, because I wasn't really playing sort of much tournament poker at the time. So yeah, I had no expectations at all. Just went in there trying to play my best, and yeah, it was just incredible to be able to like make one of those final tables just off the bat. Crazy.
That is crazy, man. And in
Yeah.
some ways, I feel bad for you because trying to top that in future years in Vegas is
Yeah.
going to be very difficult for you.
I
So
was thinking that too, actually. Yeah, it'd be tough to beat that one.
yeah, you're going to have to find different ways of sort of motivation, because most people go and think, well, I'm going to, win a bracelet or I'm going to final table something, but none of them are really as big, or not all of them are as big as that one. So like, yeah,
Yeah,
topping
crazy.
that year is going to be tough. I mean, my best year in Vegas was 2012. I finished heads up. I got second in a 4 max tournament for
Oh
about,
wow.
yeah, it was about 270K US. And I
Okay,
lost to
excellent.
Timothy Adams. It was actually a
Okay,
really
yeah,
tough final table. It was like an unofficial final table of 5.
yeah,
But we had Greg Merson, what's his name? Yeah, so Timothy Adams. Who was the other guy who stopped playing? I can't remember his name, but yeah, if people are interested, they can go look it up. But yeah, 2012 4 max.
okay,
Um,
yeah,
and yeah, it was a different experience. We were on the mothership, as they call it, the feature table.
yeah,
You're on the
yeah,
live stream, like you have your friends there. Like it does feel
yeah,
very surreal. Lots of the bright lights. You're so familiar watching it on TV, but not so much ever experiencing it. Like
yeah.
I know what it's like to be there, but I'm curious as to like how. I don't know, like, did you feel anything different? I mean, you mentioned you tried to just focus on the process, but was there an added layer of pressure? Was there an added layer of like fucking fear or like what? Tell
Yeah, I
me.
know. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Like honestly, when I first, so not final five, but like final nine or whatever, or unofficial final 10, I was the short stack. So I'm just sitting there like I'm just gonna try and double up and then ladder a couple of times, see how it goes. I literally had no expectations going in. And then yeah, end of day four, so I somehow make the final five. And then yeah, it just hits me like this is crazy. Like I'm gonna be on Twitch tape tomorrow, like playing for like $1 million. Like it's yeah, it was just insane. Um, but I think yeah, it's kind of like I guess it's kind of like when you uh when, in the lead up to like a sort of a high pressure moment is when you feel the most of the pressure. But when you're actually in that moment, when the cards start coming to you, you just sit there, you peel your cards. I have 15 big blinds. This guy's 10 big blinds, and I'm just in the zone again. So yeah,
Mm.
it was all. I guess any hype or any fear or any sort of excitement that I felt was all like prior to actually playing or like in between days. But yeah, once the cards came out, like it was just another day.
So the calm before the battle was way worse than the battle.
Something like that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
my
Uh,
view on this, which is why I'm so adamant about preparation and study and all those types of things, is that what you're describing here is when you got to that final table and the game began, and you just said, "Oh, you look at the cards and you look at the stack sizes." It's all actually automatic for you. So you're in a state of flow, which is like being in the zone, and so everything's
sure.
kind of like um, whatever you've done before, your body just remembers to behave like that. It'd be similar to if you were in a battle. Like you don't just go into a
Yeah,
gunfight not knowing how to shoot a gun. You've practiced
of
how to
course.
shoot a gun, and then you go to the fight, and then it's all automatic and muscle memory and recall. So
Yeah,
for me, it seems like you had done enough prep. You'd had played a lot, whether it be online, live. You had all that, and when you got into the game, it actually it was more just the nerves before it began. But once you got there, it was just all sort of
yeah,
memory and recall and doing the same sort of thing that you've always done.
yeah, 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 exactly. And I think like we talked about before, and which I'm sort of really big on. It's all about process, right? So like obviously I'd played a lot before prior to this tournament. But then I think the morning of, because I think we played in the afternoon, so the morning of I just went online, I looked up all my opponents, and I checked their Hendon, and then I had a few friends to help me with this, and like we sort of went through the Hendons, went through different scenarios with the chip stacks that we all had.
Oh yeah.
Um, you know, so like went through and I was like, look, what happens if this guy doubles up? What happens if I double up? In terms of like the pre-flop stuff, how tight or how loose can I play? So like yeah, we had a sort of really good preparation before that, and that sort of helps to also calm the nerves because it is a big spot, and like but like, I've done the work beforehand prior to this tournament, and I've also done the work, for today. So, what's there left to be nervous about? It's just another day. So, yeah, and I feel like, yeah. So again, yeah, process really helps with all that stuff.
So the more that you knew about what you were going to do and the more prepared you were from a fundamental and strategic point of view, the less you felt the nerves, and the less you
Yeah.
felt, anxiety in the game or pre-game or something.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, like I didn't want to overdo it, so I probably only spent like an hour or two max. I didn't sit there for like the whole night
That's
just
still
thinking
more.
about
That's still more than
it.
anyone else would have done, man. So
Yeah, I mean, I actually learned that from Patrick Leonard's, because I watched his Instagram. I read about his course or whatever, and like that's how he would prepare for an FT. I think he would prepare to quite a in quite a bit more detail than I did for mine, because he's a very very thorough and very very yeah very good player, obviously. So, but I sort of I picked a couple of tricks from him, and yeah, I sort of followed that process at least just for my FT. So I felt like it was important enough to warrant that kind of preparation. So, yeah.
yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. So then moving on, you then came back to Australia, and then you've obviously had this run in the Sydney Champs. Like a few things Tom and I were speaking about with the commentating was, did you feel any pressure on the final table of? I sort of mentioned, oh well, you just got fourth in the Millionaire Maker. Is there any? Was it fourth or fifth? Sorry.
It was fourth, yeah.
Fourth, yeah, yeah. So you got
Yeah.
fourth. Is there any, like when there were five left? I mentioned, like, I wonder if you were thinking, I need to get over this fourth place hump, in such a big final table. Did that go through your mind at all? I'm curious.
Nah, not really, to be honest. Like,
Okay.
I've played so many tournaments and then like just busted out in like seventh and fifth and fourth or whatever it is. Yeah, I don't really think about that stuff anymore. Obviously I wanted to win, and I think with five left, I actually had chip lead, so I sort of, I was starting to entertain thoughts of winning at that point. So I wasn't really thinking about the fourth place or anything. But by that time, I was just trying to go for the dub.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my comment after you doubled up with the Kings versus Ace Queen was, all right, let's wrap it up. We're done here.
If only.
Yeah, yeah. So then, so one of the last sort of questions I wanted to ask you about that final table was, when you did get heads up, you had a decent chip lead. There was a break before you played, so they could put all the $50 notes on the table and all that. What was that experience like? Because you came back and you ran pretty cold, as probably an understatement. But I'm sure you probably have gone through a bunch of those hands, and even though you ran cold, like we said before, we don't want to blame bad luck. I'm sure you were critical of yourself in that scenario. Like, what was that like?
Yeah. So in the break, to answer your first question, I think I just chatted to some friends and all that, and like we were just talking about whatever. Nothing too intense in terms of preparation. And then during I actually haven't reviewed it yet. I was gonna review. I reviewed like I think I've reviewed like 9-handed to about 3-handed, and I haven't reviewed the last sort of hour of play yet. But I was gonna do that at some point this week, I guess. But yeah, like obviously, like you said, I did run kind of cold. There were probably a couple of decisions that I made that were a bit off. Like I think there was one hand with the 6 deuce where I peeled two bets where I probably shouldn't have, but he was I think he had 7-5-0 and he was betting twice. And I peeled two bets with my bottom pair, which I probably shouldn't have done. So there were a couple
Like
of obviously
ace deuce 9 5 on the turn, 4 on the river, something like that.
yeah, ace 8 deuce 5-4. And when he bet so big on the flop and on the turn, I was like, I just didn't think he had it.
Yeah.
Just based on certain thing, and also based on the pre-flop action as well.
So this is the thing that would have been hard for you, right? So he played a very unconventional style of poker.
Yeah,
and he was doing some very random things. There was one point in the final table where he just went all in pre-flop with 10-3 suited for 30 big blinds, and then there was like another point where he was just like, open folding 9-10 suited on the button, and then when you got heads up, he was a bit all over the place. That would have been tricky because you do have to make a lot of adjustments with something like that.
Yeah, and I hadn't played with this guy before as well, and when he starts like winning every hand, it's like you kind of get the feeling like, am I getting run over, or like is he just running really hot in terms of card distribution? Like it's really hard to tell, right? Especially like with such a small sample size, like it's very difficult. So yeah, like I guess I didn't have enough time to fully adjust. Like if I were to play him again, sort of over a few more hours, I might make the adjustments, but I just didn't really have the time to adjust. And he didn't really play too many hands in the ring session of the FT either. Like I think he came in with chip lead, and I basically didn't really see him play any hands. And there was Gavin in seat 4 or 5 who was actually like being the suited chip leader, because the actual chip leader wasn't really doing anything with this chip lead. So yeah, I didn't really get to see much of many showdowns or anything, or any hands prior. So it was quite difficult to adjust. Yeah.
Yeah, and heads up, when you get to that stage, it's people just have random gears. Like some people just throw in the towel and just like, oh, well, I've made it this far, whatever. And then there are some people who like freeze up dramatically and want the blinds to go up. So it's just about, flipping and whatever, right? Like it's a very hard dynamic to adjust to. But I'm sure that you've got a lot to grow from that experience, albeit the fact that, even though you ran pretty cold. Another thing I mentioned in the commentating was Nick Kyrgios made a comment at Wimbledon. He said, "I'm sort of happy I didn't win, because like if he won Wimbledon, it means that he felt like he wouldn't have as much motivation to go for a Grand Slam." So in some ways, I'm hoping for you and your development that you got fourth in the Millionaire Maker, massive result, but still fourth. You got second now in this one, so it keeps you hungry. If you got the outright win, Yita, you would just go and sip cocktails on the beach and we won't see you again. So you got something still to aim for, not the money, but the title.
Yeah, definitely. I think honestly, like titles haven't really motivated me that much, but like, the drive to win that heads up was quite high at the time. So like I obviously was quite disappointed on the day. So yeah, like you said, keeps you hungry. On to the next one.
Nice, man. Well, look, it's a great place to start wrapping our episode up. What's next for you? I mean, I assume you got APL Millions, which you're there for now, and then what?
Yeah, so I wasn't actually planning to come to APL Mills, but because I've got a few weddings in September, so I've got a couple of friends, and also my cousin getting married. So basically, I'm going to miss the entire live schedule for September. Which
that means you're going to miss. You'll miss the WPT.
Yeah, which is actually quite unfortunate because I really wanted to play that one, but family first and friends first, I guess. So I've made a last minute decision to come down to this one. So I think this will be probably my last series for a while, until maybe the circuit event in Sydney.
Okay.
So I think I'm planning to just do that, and then probably while I'm managing these weddings, just take a bit of time off and study and just recoup, I guess. But no, it's been good, and happy to jump into the next series pretty much straight away and just keep the momentum going, see how it goes.
Nice, man. That's awesome. Well, thanks heaps for coming on here. I really appreciate you jumping on and just sharing some of your experience. I know I've gained a lot out of it, and I know 100% that the community will as well. And I speak for them when I say that, thank you for sharing that, because, we like to watch players who have great success, and we like to live vicariously through them. So getting this like deeper insight as to how your mind works, your story and your results and experiences, it's awesome, man. So thank you.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. Happy to be here, and it was a great chat. Hopefully you can get Adrian on for the next podcast to share his experience, because that would have been a crazy run as well.
Yeah, well, he just mentioned he's going to be up in the Gold Coast, so hopefully we'll bump into him there and get something going.
Excellent. Sweet.
Alrighty, thanks, Yita.
Yeah, cheers.